I am angry, John.
Are you upset? Who
I'm
hurt
so
you?
upset. The
You really
random Instagram
is
comments
someone
hurt me.
really peeving you off? They really
Yeah,
just really grinding your gears?
they're grinding my gears and not the architectural gears.
Not those gears. These
My
guys,
brain
they're getting under
gears.
your skin.
Yeah, yeah.
So let's
I was
talk
on
about it.
Instagram.
Who hurt you? Who hurt
I
you?
was on Instagram and I shared a video of Tony Crosby saying he
Great
has
guy.
the highest
Love
vertical
that
in the
guy.
world, right? And John Morant also shared a video of John Morant jumping high. Not so great of a guy. Um, allegedly.
Allegedly. No one knows if that's true.
Yeah. And talking about their jump technique. And then in the comments, they were like, dude, this jumping's all genetics. There's no point in worrying about this stuff.
Here, let
Why
me
are you
reword that.
posting all these jumping?
Let me restate this for the people. He's saying that jumping is all genetics and that there's no point in training.
Yeah.
Was that right? Or did it kind of sound something like this? Something like that? Did it sound like that?
He jumps high because genetics. Training's a waste of time.
I love it. Okay, so these you scroll through these comments and it really just started to grind your gears, you know?
Yeah.
It's really started to get into your skin because you're a pretty hardworking athlete. I'd
Yeah.
stand by that. Yeah, you'd stand by that. I'd sign off. So you consider yourself a hardworking athlete. I consider you a hardworking athlete. And these people are discrediting your work by saying, "Oh, buddy could have just woke up, got out of bed, and decided, you know what? It's time for me to go
I'm
ahead
gonna
and
jump
jump
51.
5 inches." Yeah,
Yeah.
just woke up this morning and my legs just kept developing faster than anyone else's because
Yeah.
I'm just a genetic freak. So
Yeah.
I don't believe that to be the case. And we have a lot of different things we can talk about, but I just want to share a quick anecdote because for those of you that don't know, I have been coaching Isaiah for a long time, which you probably should know that. I've known him since 2018. And in that first conversation, he probably had like a 43-ish inch vertical. Like he was doing impressive dunks on 9'9", 9'10". And like maybe you had 360 East Bay a handful of times on 9'10",
I
right?
was able to hit 360 East Bay on 10 on
On
good
10?
days.
Was it
Yeah.
consistent?
It's like, you know how like it's like comparing my 360 under both now on 10, like that level of consistency. Like when I'm feeling good at
Yeah,
first try,
probably like you could hit it,
and
might
any
take
session
some
I
work.
could hit it if I grind it out, if I feel like grinding it
Yeah,
out.
yeah, yeah, if you suffer. So he was good,
Yeah.
don't get me wrong, he's very good, but I had watched his development and kinda saw him get to this point because I first saw him do an East Bay when he was, like, 16 or 17, and it was a TFB video, I think. I reposted it or something. It was crazy. I don't remember what it was, but he looked like a
Yeah.
child, and I was like, "Wow, this is incredible." He is literally the product of just training, and I don't know what he's doing at the time, but I was pretty skilled as a
And
coach.
this is also an important point. I was doing resistance training.
He was doing resistance training, yeah, but he wasn't like a freak. When I see a freak, I mean, I can take them to the track and they're gonna run 10.6 speed day one, and it will make no sense. Like it's just innate natural speed. Or you take them out to high jump, like you'll hear these crazy stories of guys going out day one in high jump and they jump like 7.2, you know, or like
Yeah.
6.10 or something like that. Like it's not like Isaiah was doing that. You know, you were really someone who had developed the craft of dunking, and you could tell because your outputs weren't crazy and you've been training. Like when I started
Yeah.
working with him, his back squat was maybe 315, his power clean was like 200, maybe 215, maybe
I think I was
did you hit 225?
225.
Yeah, so he'd been training. Like and there was even your upper body at one point had been pretty yoked. Like he was at this point had already gone through the muscular, like pretty stocky stage, and then had a
Yeah.
lot of knee pain. So at that time, I was power cleaning 245. I was squatting 345 deep, and I probably had an approach. I think my one step vertical was like 35 or 36. So I have higher metrics, and I was faster than him as well at the time, like much
A lot
faster.
faster.
And my RSI was a lot better. So my stiffness metrics were better. My high rate of force development metrics were better. My sprint times were better. My max strength was better, and my power was better. Speed, strength, and strength speed. So I basically across the board had everything checked except for coordination and mobility. That's where he had a lot on me because mobility was genetic, and then coordination he had put tens of 20 of thousands of reps in to get really, really good at 2-foot jumping. So, coming back to this conversation, I was like talking to him about his training, and I realized it sucked. It sucked so bad. And I was like, dude, well, okay, there were some things good about it. But I looked at it and I was like, this is so archaic. This is literally caveman level of training theory and training complexity. And not that complex stuff is always better. That's not necessarily the case. But I looked at it and I was like, there's no progression in the squats. There's no progression in the accessory work. There's no progression to the sprint work. There's no progression to the warm up even. And there was like not even cleans regularly. It was just like, I just do strength and then I just jump and then I just do strength and I just jump. And it was basically block periodization. And he had a lot of knee pain too. So there was a lot of things to work on. And I realized after like getting him healthy in that first cycle back that his potential was way higher. And it wasn't necessarily the fact that he hadn't trained. He had trained incredibly hard, especially at the specific skill of jumping. It was that he hadn't deep dived into the complex options and opportunities that would let him reach beyond what he thought his genetic potential was. So when we went into that little magic goodie bag and it was like, okay, what can we do that's going to push the needle forward for him that he hasn't done in the past? Can we take advantage of these maximal eccentrics? Can we take advantage of these maximal isometrics? Can we take advantage of doing different plyos and allowing him to, start to implement that at a higher degree? Can we do sprints? Like he hadn't done any sprinting in his training, I think, at that point. I don't think you had any
No
planned
sprinting,
acceleration development.
no plyos, no power work. I hadn't even undulated volume and intensity. It was literally set to 5 on
Yeah,
all my strength work.
but the one thing that he did better than anyone else and why he was so much further along is his specificity, intent of specific work, which is one of the number one determinants of your rate of force development and your ability at that sport improving, was incredibly, incredibly high quality and incredibly high volumes.
And I
Like
always pushed in the weight room too.
yeah, you had high intent in the weight room when you were lifting, but
Yeah.
but I think you're like when you're comparing me and you, because I don't think that we are that different in terms of our actual genetic ability, not as much as what a lot of other people think. And HVAC gave me a call, had to answer it. But I was talking about our genetic abilities. So I actually don't think, believe it or not, I do not think Isaiah and I are that different, not as much as what I think other people assume. And here's why. One, when you look at sprint speeds, Isaiah and I are very, very similar. Even upright, who knows about now, but when I was his age and we had both been sprinting 3 days a week for 6 or 7 months or a year, like we'd both been sprinting a lot. Our sprint times were very similar. Yeah, I was actually faster than him for a long time. It took him a long time to catch me in terms of sprint speed. That's one. Two, our 1-foot vertical, which is highly sensitive when it comes to the nervous system, is identical. Actually, on my best day, who knows if he did it all the time, what it would be. But on my best day, my flight times are higher than his on his best day right now. So that's the second reason why. Three, our strength numbers in exercises that are not limited by mobility are not that different. Now, I will say his quads are over the last 5 years probably 3 years, that discrepancy has increased. But it's not because of his genetics being so much better. It's because I have not been pushing in the weight room as hard as he has in deep knee flexion exercises. I can't deep squat. If I could deep squat all the time like Isaiah does, my quads would be a hell of a lot stronger and I'd probably have a lot more muscle mass in my hips and my quads, but I don't really have that option. The only thing I can do is I can get on the leg extension, and I probably only had access to that a handful of times. Either I was training at a CrossFit box or I wasn't going to use that as a staple in my training. And I was a 1-foot jumper, so I also didn't necessarily want to do that. The other thing is that mobility aspect, I think, played a major role into him progressing a lot more than I think other people realized. So you look at our RSIs, even now, our RSIs are not that different, which is a major measure of your tendon stiffness and your nervous system's ability to recruit force really, really fast. Now, where we differ the most is that Isaiah is able to generate force over longer intervals better. So if you give him, for example, on a 315 hex bar jump, his wattage will keep climbing up. And I believe Ben called it explosive deficit, but it's basically that you are able to achieve really high power outputs closer to your max strength versus, lower percentages.
Yeah.
He has a very low deficit, meaning he can just keep generating force at heavier and heavier and heavier weights. The power just keeps going and climbing and climbing. Like maybe we can get to the same force in 200 milliseconds or, whatever, about the same, or 210. But as soon as you say, hey, Isaiah, generate force over 300, 400, 500 milliseconds, he just keeps revving up and it just keeps going and going in terms of wattage, right? There's no drop off, there's no dip. It's just like this linear power curve.
We have the data.
We have the data. I've looked at the data. I've looked at the load velocity relationship. And you'll see me just drop off. Like as soon as I get to a power clean at like probably like, I don't even know, 235, my powers start to dip down a lot. But Isaiah's powers don't dip down until 275, 285. He'll just keep going up and climbing up that curve. And so his ground contact time on the ground is fairly long. So he can generate force across that 300 milliseconds, damn near 300 milliseconds, or he can run faster, generate a lot of force, but then keep generating force across that. He's way stronger in deep knee flexions. So what's that? Yeah, exactly. I think it'd still be a really good 1-footer, to let it be known, if you did do it a lot. But the other thing we've noticed is his tendons are a little bit more compliant than mine are. So his Achilles specifically, like when we do calf raises, you bounce in the calf raises. I do not. I cannot do that. And I think it's because your tendons are a little bit more compliant. You can still get elastic energy at a really high load like that. I cannot. I either need it to be incredibly stiff, not as much angulation, a lot of force, more isometric in my gastroc and soleus, where you're like, yeah, I'll just like allow a lot of deformation in the tendon and you'll return that energy back. But this is not how it always was. Like, how long do you think it took you to get your calves to a point where you could calf raise a comparable weight to me, or your RSI was comparable?
2 years probably.
Yeah. Like it was very much so a training response of training 20 or let's say 10 to 20 hours a week.
2019, 2020, 2021, 2022 is when I started having
kind
strong
of climbing
calves.
that up. Yeah. Yeah. And then RSI, I mean, the highest you've ever tested was the other day. Prior to that, the highest I'd seen was 3.2. The other day you tested 3.6, which is the highest it's ever been.
3.74,
which is the highest it's ever been. The highest I've ever hit is just under 4, barefoot, when I was about 25 or 26. So, that was prior to my partially tearing my patella and having any labral issues. That's the highest I ever hit in terms of RSI. So, and I could deep squat and things like that. It definitely helped. But you're now finally seeing, those numbers eclipse what my all-time metrics were in terms of reactive strength, which is crazy. I think people look at you and they're like, oh, it's just genetics, bro. It's just genetics. There's no training effect. I absolutely do not believe that. Your power clean has gone up marginally across the years, and your vertical has increased marginally in conjunction with that. Same thing with your squat, same thing with your front squat, same thing with your belt squat now. Like, people don't realize we've just pushed the needle so damn far on every single possible physiological, biomechanical aspect that there's not.
And it's also ignoring the research too.
What's that?
And then you're also ignoring all the research too. Like we made a list of like every variable we could think of in regards to jumping, which I think we have 2 minutes. I'm just gonna name them.
I'm just gonna speed run them.
Nervous system, all the nervous system variables, motor unit firing frequency, speed of motor unit recruitment.
All of these are modifiable. Every single one of them is modifiable.
Yeah, how synchronized they are when you recruit those motor units. Then you have inhibitory responses, mainly from the Golgi tendon organ. So that's like the central governor that's telling your brain, whoa, he's stretching the tendon way too far. Let's reduce this force output.
Let's keep going.
In terms of muscles, contractile strength, architectural gearing, which under that falls fascicle length, pronation angle. You have your parallel elastic components, which consists of tighten, your connective tissue, your aponeurosis, and you have your tendons. Main variable there is stiffness, jump technique. Every single one of these variables are things that you can genetically be more predisposed. Like they can be favored towards jumping higher, right? If you have stiff tendons, naturally strong, wired nervous system, a lot of type 2 muscle fibers. And in research, it has shown that all these things can be improved. And if you can improve those things, that means the training can make you jump higher.
Here's another quick anecdote before we go. One of my best friends, whenever I was coming up as a young coach, his name was Eric Broadbent. Eric did 4 years of college track and field at a very high level, right? He trains for 2 years post-collegiately. Most people just stop. Most people stop getting better after high school. He trained for 4 years in college, got better every single year. He trains for 4 more years after college, and his PR just kept going up every single year. This is someone who high jumps 7 foot, right? And this is a quantitatively assessed sport. There's nothing qualitative about it. Every year, metrics would go up in the rate room. Metrics would go up in RSI. Metrics would go up in sprint time. Then his long jump would get 2-3 inches better every year. An inch or two every year, another 2 inches, another 2 inches, another 2 inches. Next thing you know, he's jumping 24 feet, 24.5, going from 23 feet to 24.5. High jump, same thing, comes in at 6'4", 6'6". 1 year, he's 6'8". Next year has a big breakthrough, goes to 7'2" or 7'1", right? Hurdle times just keep coming down. Throws just keep going up a foot each year, a couple inches each year. Next thing you know, he's at the damn Olympic trials winning day 1 until pole vault, because he can't freaking pole vault. But if he had spent enough time doing it, he probably would have been or on pace to be a U.S. Olympian. Life got in the way. He had a wife, he had kids, couldn't, financially afford to do it anymore. But the ceiling is way higher than everyone thinks. And the potential is way higher than everyone thinks. People are they just want to cop out and they want to be lazy. And, my excuse is, it's just genetics, so there's no point. That's just not the truth. So we got to get going though. If you guys are interested, go to THPstrength.com and sign up for coaching.
Bye.
Ciao.